Welcome back. So, the story so far, the story of Kings does not begin with Solomon, it begins much earlier. In Genesis, God called Abraham and promised to make him into a great nation. In Exodus, God delivered Israel from slavery. In Joshua, Israel entered the promised land. In Judges, the nation drifted. In Ruth, quiet faithfulness survived in dark times. In First Samuel, Israel demanded a king. In Second Samuel, David united the kingdom and established Jerusalem. And now the nation stands at its highest point. The land has been secured, the enemies have been subdued, the kingdom is united, the throne is established. David's son Solomon is about to take the crown. Everything appears to be coming together, but Kings will reveal something surprising. The greatest threat to Israel would not come from outside enemies, it will come from within. Of course, that's been a recurring theme since the book of Genesis, Leviticus, Numbers. We have Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Those, of course, again, go back, watch the videos as I always mention on my other videos and the shorts. Those are describing or talking about the laws and commandments God gave the children of Israel. This is how to walk with me. So we'll continue on with the story. Before we continue on, I wanted to drop this in so we can have an understanding of BC, AD, and other dates. These terms are used to describe time in relation to the birth of Jesus Christ. I know for me, I always wondered, I always thought AD was after death, but after doing some research a few years back, found out I was wrong. So hopefully this is helpful, especially with going through Kings. I put something different in here, the time periods, approximate time periods. So hopefully this helps. So David goes to be with his ancestors. Solomon becomes king. At first, everything seems promising. When God offers Solomon anything he desires, Solomon asks for wisdom, and God grants it. His wisdom becomes legendary. The temple is built. Jerusalem flourishes. The nation reaches unprecedented wealth and influence. This is Israel's golden age. Everything Joshua's generation hoped for seems fulfilled, but success creates its own dangers. Over time, Solomon begins compromising, and the Bible actually records that King Solomon loved many strange women. It's in chapter 11 of First Kings. He had 700 wives and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart from God. A message was sent via the prophet Ahijah to King Solomon's servant Jeroboam, saying, I will afflict the seed of David, but not forever. Political alliances lead to spiritual compromise. Foreign influences introduce idolatry. The king, known for wisdom, slowly drifts from wholehearted devotion. Just a modern application, knowledge is not the same as faithfulness. You can know what is right and still fail to live it. Success cannot replace obedience. Again, King Solomon, wisest man in the Bible, he started out good, but he ended up doing some things that God told the children of Israel not to do, which was to mix and mingle with the other nations. And so he began to do that, and the decline was near. After Solomon dies, the kingdom faces a crisis. His son Rehoboam takes the throne. The people ask for relief. Instead, Rehoboam responds harshly. The kingdom fractures. 10 tribes become Israel in the north. 2 tribes remain Judah in the south. What David united is now divided. And from this moment forward, decline accelerates. Jeroboam immediately establishes alternative worship centers. Political division becomes spiritual division. Division rarely appears overnight. Just keep this in mind. It often begins with pride, with refusing wisdom, with choosing power over humility. Everything changes here. First Kings is primarily the story of glory to division. Second Kings becomes a story of division to collapse. The kingdom is no longer drifting toward trouble. The consequences are now unfolding. The question shifts. No longer, how did the kingdom divide, but how did the kingdom fall? And this is a good time for me to say, just go back and read First and Second Kings. Watch the video, as I always mention on my videos. Go back and you watch all the videos from Genesis up until now, and then read that specific book of the Bible. And my prayer, my hope is that it makes more sense after you watch the video, and then go back and do your own reading and research. Because with this video, I'm combining First and Second Kings in 10-15 minutes. So, that's not enough time to go completely through either book of the Bible. As compromise spreads, God raises prophets. One of the most famous is Elijah. King Ahab and Queen Jezebel promote Baal worship. Idolatry becomes widespread. Elijah confronts the nation on Mount Carmel. A single prophet stands against hundreds. The issue is simple: who is truly God? The contest ends dramatically, but Elijah's greatest struggle comes afterward: fear, discouragement, and isolation. Queen Jezebel said, I'm going to get Elijah, and he took off and had his cave experience. But many people can relate to Elijah, not because of Mount Carmel, but because of the cave afterward. Faithful people still become exhausted. Faithful people still become discouraged. God meets Elijah in the quiet, not the earthquake, not the fire, but the whisper. And just pay particular attention to the cycle of burnout is really relevant for today. What happens, because I've seen that a lot, even in my own life. It may not be on a large scale, but sometimes we start out with that zeal, and then something happens. Maybe someone says the wrong thing to us, and the momentum dies down. And then we hear a good word, it goes back up. So just be careful with that. Elijah departs. Elisha continues the mission. While kings fail repeatedly, God continues working. Miracles occur. Lives are changed. Provision appears. Healing happens. The kingdom may be declining, but God has not abandoned his people. Keep this in mind. God's faithfulness is not dependent on human leadership. Leaders come and go. God remains. Generation after generation, warnings continue. Prophets speak, kings ignore them. Compromise becomes normal. Idolatry becomes accepted. Eventually, the northern kingdom of Israel falls. Assyria conquers the nation. The 10 tribes disappear from history. The warnings become reality. Collapse is rarely sudden. Most collapse is gradual. Small compromises accumulate. Warning signs are ignored. Consequences eventually arrive. Definitely relevant for today's society. Not every king is corrupt. Two stand out. Hezekiah, he trusts God during crisis. He brings reform, and I love to read about the story of Hezekiah. God added to his life. So again, go back after you watch the video and read First and Second Kings. Lots of great stuff in it, especially things that are relevant for today. Josiah, he rediscovers God's law, and the nation experiences renewal. For a moment, hope returns, but the reforms do not last. Revival cannot simply be inherited. Every generation must choose faithfulness for itself. Eventually, Babylon arrives. Jerusalem falls. The temple is destroyed. The city burns. The people are taken into exile. The story reaches its darkest moment. Everything Israel once possessed appears lost. The land, the kingdom, the temple, the throne, all gone. When people repeatedly ignore God's direction, consequences eventually follow. Not because God is absent. And I want to get too ahead of myself, but in Jeremiah, there's the Jeremiah 29:11 that I know, but people misquote all the time. It's always relating to vision board, but that's not the true meaning of Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. That message was for the children of Israel. So again, which I talked about that in a previous video earlier this year. It was a short covering the correct interpretation of scripture. But just keep that in mind as we're going through these different books of the Bible. By the end of Second Kings, the story feels tragic. The nation Abraham's descendants built is gone. The land Joshua conquered is lost. The kingdom David established has fallen. The temple Solomon built has been destroyed. Everything appears finished, but scripture leaves a small hint of hope because even in exile, God promises remain. The throne may be empty, the temple may be gone, the people may be scattered, but God's covenant has not failed. And that brings us all the way back to Genesis, from Abraham's calling to Moses' deliverance, to Joshua's conquest, to the judges, to the kings. The deeper story has always been the same. Human beings repeatedly fail. God remains faithful. Kings proves that better leaders alone cannot solve the problem. More wealth cannot solve it. More wisdom cannot solve it. A stronger kingdom cannot solve it, because the deepest issue was never political, it was spiritual. The problem was never the throne, it was the human heart. And yet, even after the kingdom falls, the story is not over, because the next books will begin looking backward, not to tell a different story, but to help us understand this story differently. And that is where Chronicles begins. A people without a kingdom, a people returning from exile, a people asking, how did we get here? And is there still hope for the future? Because even after the fall of a nation, God is not finished writing the story. So thank you, and I will see you in Second Chronicles. Feel free to drop a comment in the comment section. And again, I will see you in Second Chronicles.